The acrid scent of burning metal filled the air. Sparks shot out like fireflies as machines groaned in protest against another grueling night shift. Sweat clung to my skin, the heat from the factory floor wrapping around me like a noose. My arms ached from lifting heavy steel beams, my fingers raw from 1,000 cuts that never fully healed. I tightened my grip on the rusted handle of the conveyor belt. My mind a storm of exhaustion and resentment. "Keep up, Elijah, or you'll be clocking out permanently," barked Rick, the floor manager, his voice like gravel ground underfoot. I swallowed back the anger rising in my throat. Rick was the kind of man who got off on making others feel small, and I was his favorite target. I had been working at this hellhole of a factory for 2 years. 2 years of barely scraping by, of living in a rundown apartment where the walls were thin enough to hear my neighbors argue over whose turn it was to buy dinner. 2 years of ramen noodles and overdue bills. 2 years of hiding the truth about who I was. Because if anyone knew, my life would be over. I used to have a name that mattered. Elijah Sinclair, a name whispered in private meetings, printed on the covers of business magazines, and spoken with a mix of admiration and envy in boardrooms. But that was before betrayal, before I lost everything, before I disappeared. Now, I was just Eli, the broke factory worker nobody looked at twice. And that was exactly how I needed it to be. "Yo, Eli," a voice called. I turned to see Benny, my only friend in this place. He was short, wiry, and had a grin that could charm the devil. "Union reps outside," he said in a hushed voice. "They're talking layoffs. You hear anything?" My stomach twisted. "Layoffs?" Benny nodded. "Word is, they're cutting half the night shift. People say management's been bleeding money." I cursed under my breath. If I lost this job, I had nothing left. But I knew something they didn't. Management wasn't bleeding money. I had spent my nights digging through company records when no one was looking. The factory wasn't failing. It was being gutted from the inside. Money was vanishing, funneled into offshore accounts. And the person responsible? The same man who had destroyed my life. The memory still burned. For years ago, I was at the top. A self-made entrepreneur, running one of the fastest growing manufacturing companies in the country. My ideas had revolutionized the industry. Investors lined up at my door. And then someone stole it all. That someone was Victor Langley, my mentor, my business partner, the man I once trusted like a brother. He had me framed for fraud, stripped me of my company, and left me with nothing. Overnight, I went from a millionaire to a man with barely a dollar to his name. And now, here I was, working in a factory owned by my company, a company that Victor had stolen, but he had no idea. For 2 years, I kept my head down, biding my time. I learned the factory inside and out. I memorized its weak points, uncovered the secrets in its books, and traced every missing dollar back to Victor. I wasn't just here to survive. I was here to take back what was mine. But I needed proof, hard evidence, something I could use to expose him publicly. Tonight, I had my chance. The factory security office held the files I needed, the final puzzle piece that would bring Victor to his knees. If I could get inside, I could end this nightmare. But if I got caught, I wouldn't just lose my job. I'd lose everything. Midnight came and the factory quieted. Most workers had already clocked out, leaving only the skeleton crew. I wiped the sweat from my hands, my pulse a steady drumbeat of nerves. The security office was just down the hall. I memorized the shift changes and timed the blind spots in the cameras. I moved quickly, keeping to the shadows. My fingers trembled as I picked the lock. A quiet click and the door creaked open. Inside, rows of filing cabinets lined the walls. My breath caught in my throat. If the records were here, I could finally prove that Victor had been embezzling money for years. But as I reached for a file, the overhead lights blazed alive. A voice like ice filled the room. "I was wondering when you'd finally make your move." I spun around. Standing in the doorway was Victor Langley himself. His lips curled into a smirk. "You thought I didn't know you were here, Elijah?" And just like that, everything fell apart. Victor Langley stepped into the dimly lit security office, his presence suffocating, His tailored suit was out of place among the grease-stained walls and flickering fluorescent lights, but the smugness in his expression fits perfectly. "I have to say, Elijah," he mused, strolling toward me like a predator circling wounded prey. "I almost admire your persistence, but did you think I wouldn't recognize a rat in my factory?" I clenched my fists, heart pounding. My factory. He dared to call it his, as if he hadn't stolen from me, hadn't ripped my life apart and left me to rot. I just wanted to see how deep the corruption went. I said, keeping my voice even, and for what I found, it's as deep as it gets. Victor chuckled, slow and deliberate. "And what exactly do you think you found? A few misplaced dollars? A little corporate mismanagement? Be serious, Elijah. No one cares." He was lying. I could hear it in the forced ease of his tone. He was worried. Good. I turned back to the open filing cabinet and grabbed a folder stuffed with financial records. You siphoned millions into offshore accounts. You left hundreds of workers underpaid while you lined your pockets. If this gets out, it won't. I barely had time to react before Victor's fist slammed into my gut, knocking the air from my lungs. The folder slipped from my grasp, paper scattering like fallen leaves. Pain exploded through me as I doubled over. Before I could recover, Victor grabbed me by the collar and shoved me against the metal cabinets. "You don't get it, do you?" he hissed. "This isn't some fairy tale where the good guy wins. This is the real world. And in the real world, people like you lose." I forced myself to meet his gaze, ignoring the throbbing pain in my ribs. "We'll see about that." A smirk tugged at his lips. "No, we won't." Then he nodded toward the door. 2 security guards stormed in. "You're fired, Elijah," Victor said smoothly. "And by the time I'm done with you, you'll be lucky if you have a place to sleep tonight." I struggled as the guards grabbed me, dragging me out of the office. My mind screamed at me to fight back, to do something, but I knew there was no winning this battle. Not yet. Victor had power. I had nothing. For now. The factory gate slammed shut behind me, and the cold night air bit into my skin. Fired. That job had been the only thing keeping me afloat. The paycheck barely covered rent, but it was something. Now I had nothing. I pulled out my phone and checked my bank account. $42.87. That was all I had to my name. The rent was due in a week. My landlord didn't tolerate late payments. My chest tightened as I walked down the empty street, past the closed-down shops and flickering streetlights. The city was unforgiving to men like me. Once, I owned penthouses and drove luxury cars. Now, I had to decide whether I could afford dinner or if I should save what little I had left for the days ahead. I chose hunger. The next morning, I walked into the unemployment office, already knowing how this would go. The waiting area was packed with people just like me, tired, desperate, and clinging to whatever hope they had left. After an hour, my name was finally called. The woman behind the desk barely looked at me as she scrolled through her computer. Reason for termination? I hesitated. If I told the truth, would it even matter? Company restructuring, I said flatly. She typed something, then frowned. Looks like your employer contested your eligibility for benefits. Says you were terminated for misconduct. My stomach dropped. That's not true. She sighed, finally looking up at me. Without proof, I can't approve your claim. Anger burned in my chest. Victor had planned this. He didn't just want me fired. He wanted to make sure I had no way to get back on my feet. I clenched my jaw. So what am I supposed to do? She gave a practiced, indifferent shrug. File an appeal, but it could take months. Months. I didn't have months. As I stepped back out onto the street, reality hit me like a freight train. No job, no money, no safety net. I was truly on my own. The days blurred together. I applied to dozens of jobs. Each rejection email a fresh wound. No one wanted to hire someone who had been accused of misconduct. I sold what little I had left. My old watch, my laptop, anything that could buy me a few more days. But it wasn't enough. One night, I came home to find an eviction notice taped to my door. I stared at it for a long time, my body numb. This was it. This was the bottom. I had nothing left. I spent the night on a park bench, my thin jacket useless against the cold, my stomach twisted with hunger, but the ache barely registered anymore. Then, out of nowhere, a familiar voice. "Eli." I turned. It was Benny. His eyes widened in shock as he took in my disheveled appearance. "Man, what the hell happened to you?" I forced a weak smile. "Got fired. Evicted. You know, the usual." Benny's expression darkened. "I heard what Victor did. He's a damn snake. You need a place to crash?" I hesitated. I hated the idea of relying on anyone, but I had no choice. "Yeah," I admitted, "I do." Benny's couch was lumpy, but it was better than the streets. For the first time in days, I had a roof over my head, but I wasn't safe yet. The next morning, Benny shoved a newspaper in my hands. "Look at this." I unfolded it, my breath catching at the headline. Victor Langley announces plans to shut down factory, leaving hundreds jobless. My fist clenched. Victor hadn't just destroyed me, he was destroying everyone. That factory was the only thing keeping some of those workers from ending up exactly where I was. And now, he was ripping it away from them. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. I looked up at Benny, determination burning in my gut. I need to take him down. Benny smirked. "Then let's do it." Victor thought he had buried me. He thought I was finished. But I still had one last move left. I knew his secrets. I knew how he stole from the company, how he funneled money out, how he built his empire on lies. I just needed proof. And this time, I wouldn't be caught. This time, I'd be the one holding all the cards. Benny leaned forward. "What's the plan?" I met his gaze, the fire of a man with nothing to lose burning in my eyes. "We're going to break into Victor's private office." Benny's eyes widened. "That's suicide." "Maybe," I said, "but it's the only way to bring him down." He exhaled, then grinned. "Hell, why not? Let's burn the bastard to the ground." As the night stretched before us, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. Benny and I sat in his cramped apartment, hunched over a stolen blueprint of Langley Industries. The fluorescent kitchen light buzzed overhead as we traced the factory's layout with a marker. Victor's private office was our target, the place where he stashed his darkest secrets. "I still think this is a suicide," Benny muttered, tapping his fingers against the table. "Security is tight. Cameras, keycard access. Hell, even janitors need clearance." I exhaled. There has to be a way. I scanned the blueprint again, focusing on the electrical system. A network of underground maintenance tunnels ran beneath the building, a relic of the factory's old design. I followed the lines with my finger until I reached an unmarked room, connected to Victor's office. My stomach tightened. What the hell was this? Benny noticed my expression. "What is it?" "There's a hidden room next to his office," I said slowly. "No label, no function, but it has a direct connection to the building's mainframe." Benny raised an eyebrow. "You think that's where he hides the dirt?" "I think it's worth finding out." We exchanged a look. This wasn't just about breaking in anymore. This was about uncovering something Victor never wanted the world to see. And that meant it was worth the risk. 2 nights later, we made our move. Benny, dressed as a janitor, walked into the factory like he belonged there. I slipped through the maintenance entrance, my stolen security badge clipped to my belt. The tunnels were dark and damp, the air thick with the scent of rust and mold. My footsteps echoed against the cold metal walls as I navigated the narrow passage. Then I saw it, a rusted, unmarked door buried beneath layers of dust and time. No one had opened this in years. I held my breath as I tried the handle. Locked. I pulled out a screwdriver, forcing it into a crevice and twisting it with everything I had. The metal groaned, then click, the door swung open, and what I saw inside nearly knocked the air from my lungs. The hidden room was not empty. Rows of old metal filing cabinets lined the walls, stuffed with documents. A dusty desk sat in the center, covered in papers, an ancient desktop computer still humming with life. This wasn't just any storage room. This was Victor's real office. I flipped through a stack of papers, my heart hammering. Bank transactions, fake employee records, wire transfers to offshore accounts. Victor wasn't just embezzling money. He was laundering millions. But one document made my blood run cold. It was a contract, signed by Langley Industries and me. I snatched it up, my breath catching in my throat. Victor never actually bought my company. He forged the documents. The legal transfer? Never completed, which meant I still owned everything. I gripped the paper so hard my fingers ached. My mind raced through the possibilities. Victor had built his empire on a legal lie. If I took this to court, he wouldn't just lose the company. He could go to prison for fraud. But why had he left this here? Why not destroy it? Then I saw it. The fine print at the bottom. The contract was still legally active. This meant if I walked into Langley Industries tomorrow and invoked my ownership rights, Victor would have no legal grounds to stop me. I wasn't just some broke, jobless man anymore. I was the rightful owner of a multi-billion-dollar empire. I stuffed the contract into my jacket and turned toward the door and froze. A red blinking light flickered in the corner of the room, a security camera. Someone was watching. Then the overhead lights flickered. The air filled with mechanical whir, and a voice crackled through an unseen speaker. I was wondering when you'd find this, Elijah. My stomach twisted. Victor. I whipped around, searching for him, but he wasn't there. He was watching from somewhere else. You really thought I wouldn't have backup plans? Victor's voice was almost amused. You're playing checkers, Elijah. I'm playing chess. I grabbed my phone and snapped pictures of the contract, my hand shaking. Go ahead, take the papers, Victor continued. But I promise you, by the time you leave this building, your name will be worthless. Your bank accounts will be frozen. Your legal claim won't mean a damn thing. He wasn't bluffing. Victor had power, connections. He could destroy me before I even reached the courtroom. I needed to get out. Now, I bolted out of the room, heart pounding. Benny's voice came through the earpiece. Eli, what's happening? Every alarm in the damn building just went off. Victor knows. I gasped. I have the proof, but he's trying to cut me off before I can use it. Benny cursed. I'm outside. Move. I sprinted to the tunnels, every shadow feeling like a threat. Security guards swarmed the factory above me. Then, a metal grate, a vent, an opening to the outside. I dropped my knees, pried it open and squeezed through. The cold night air hit my face as I stumbled into an alleyway. Benny was waiting by a running car. Get in, he yelled. I threw myself inside, slamming the door behind me as he peeled away from the factory. We drove in silence, my mind racing. Victor thought he had won. He thought he could bury me, erase my existence. But he had underestimated me. I wasn't some powerless worker anymore. I had the law on my side, and I had nothing left to lose. I glanced at Benny. We need a lawyer, a damn good one. He nodded. I might know a guy. I exhaled, gripping the contract in my hands. Tomorrow, the real game begins. The sun had barely risen when I stepped into the sleek office of Evelyn Shaw, one of the toughest corporate lawyers in the state. She leaned back in her leather chair, sharp brown eyes scanning the contract in her hands. Her fingers drummed lightly against the desk, the only sound in the tense silence. Finally, she looked up. Elijah, she said slowly, placing the paper down. Do you understand what you have here? I nodded. This contract proves Victor never legally owned my company. If we file a claim, Langley Industries is mine. A smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. Legally, you're right. But this isn't just about paperwork. Victor is powerful. You think he'll sit back and let you waltz in as CEO? I clenched my jaw. I don't expect him to, but I played by the rules before, and where did that get me? I lost everything. This time, I played to win. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right, she said, let's burn his empire to the ground. The first step was filing a lawsuit, an official claim stating that Victor had fraudulently acquired Langley Industries. The second step, freezing his assets. Evelyn worked fast. submitting emergency motions that locked down Victor's bank accounts. His cash flow was severed overnight. Employees weren't paid. Vendors panicked. The stock price plummeted. And Victor? He was furious. A week after we launched our attack, I received a call. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. I answered. Elijah. Victor's voice came through, smooth but laced with venom. That was a cute little stunt you pulled. Freezing my accounts? I expected better. I smiled, leaning back in my chair. I'm just getting started. A dry chuckle. And what's your end game? Do you think some legal paperwork makes you CEO? You don't have the experience, the connections, the money. Even if you win in court, the board will never accept you. I kept my voice calm. Maybe not, but they'll accept the truth when I expose your embezzlement. Silence. Then he spoke, softer this time. You don't want to do this, Elijah. I leaned forward. You took everything from me, and you think I'll walk away? Victor sighed. Fine, have it your way. The line went dead, and I knew he wasn't backing down. The next day, I turned on the news. Breaking. Former CEO Elijah Cole under investigation for fraud. My stomach dropped. The screen flashed an image of me, a grainy, years-old picture from my time at Langley. Below it, headlines scrolled. Right Arrow allegations of financial misconduct surface against Elijah Cole. Right Arrow anonymous sources claim Cole funneled money before his company was stolen. Right Arrow, could Cole be a fraudster trying to reclaim Langley Industries illegally? I felt sick. Victor was framing me. He was trying to flip the script, to make it look like I was a corrupt one. Benny burst through my office door, panting. Dude, what the hell is this? I gritted my teeth. Victor's counterattack. Evelyn called a few minutes later. We need to get ahead of this, she said. If people believe these allegations, your case is dead before it even starts. How do we stop it? I asked. She hesitated. We need proof that Victor is a real fraud. Hard proof. And I think I know where to get it. I sat up. Where? She took a breath. His offshore accounts. Victor had dozens of offshore bank accounts. Hidden wealth he'd been embezzling for years. If we could access those records, we could prove his guilt. The problem? They were stored on a private, encrypted server inside Langley's headquarters. And I wasn't exactly welcome there. Benny shook his head when I told him plan. We're breaking into Langley? You've lost your damn mind. I smirked. You in or not? He sighed. You know I am. 2 nights later, we stood outside Langley Industries, dressed in security uniforms. The plan was simple. Sneak into the IT department, hack into the server, download the files. We slipped past the guards, my pulse pounding in my ears. Every hallway, every turn felt like stepping into enemy territory. Finally, we reached the server room. I plugged in a USB drive, fingers flying across the keyboard. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. Then, access granted. The file started downloading. Come on, I muttered. Then, the door burst open. Security. Guns raised. Step away from the computer. I raised my hand slowly, my mind racing. This was bad. Then, footsteps. Someone else entered the room. I turned, and my stomach dropped. Victor. He smirked, hands in his pockets. Did you really think I wouldn't see this coming? My mouth went dry. He shook his head. I told you, Elijah, you're playing checkers. I'm playing chess. He stepped forward, eyes gleaming. But let me tell you a secret. He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. I never planned toy frowned. What are you talking about? Victor chuckled. Langley, it's just a stepping stone. I've already moved most of my assets. This company, it's a sinking ship. My chest tightened. What? You think you're taking something from me? He smirked. By the time you win, if you win, Langley will be worthless. Cold dread washed over me. Victor was abandoning company, and I was fighting for something that was already collapsing. I was so focused on revenge, I didn't see the bigger picture. Victor was already moving on to his next empire. Langley? It was just bait. But if he was walking away from Langley, that meant he had a new target. I stared at him, my mind working fast. "You're laundering money somewhere else." His smirk widened. I was right. Langley was just a front. The real money, the real power, was somewhere else. And if I found where Victor was going next, I could destroy him for good. I took a deep breath, meeting his gaze. "I see the game now," I said. "But you made one mistake, Victor." His smirk faltered. "Oh," I grinned. "You underestimated me." Victor thought he was untouchable. He believed he had played me, that Langley was just a distraction while he moved his real wealth elsewhere. But what he didn't know was that I had already planted the seeds of his downfall. The moment I walked out of Langley that night, escorted by security, I had one mission: to find his new empire and burn it to the ground before he could escape. Benny and I drove in silence, my mind racing. "You okay, man?" he asked, gripping the wheel. I exhaled slowly. "No, but I will be." Victor thought I was fighting for Langley. He had no idea I was coming for his future, and I knew exactly where to start. Victor always bragged about being 5 steps ahead, but he had one weakness: his arrogance. He had been moving assets for months, shifting his power structure. And I had stolen enough of Langley's financial records to find something interesting: a series of shell companies tied to offshore accounts. All of them led to one unknown entity, Blackwood Holdings, a company that, on paper, barely existed. No offices, no website, no public records. But Evelyn worked her magic, digging through layers of financial transactions, and then, boom! Blackwood Holdings had just acquired a massive real estate project in Miami, a luxury development worth billions. And the name tied to the deal? Victor Langley. I smirked. "Got you, you son of a..." Benny grinned. "So what's the plan?" I turned to him. "We take everything before he even knows we're coming." Victor stole Langley from me. Now, I was about to steal Blackwood from him. Step 1, expose the money laundering. Step 2, turn the investors against him. Step 3, leave him with nothing. We worked fast. Evelyn filed a whistleblower report with the SEC, detailing how Victor was funneling stolen money into Blackwood Holdings. The feds were now watching. At the same time, I reached out to his biggest investors, the people who funded Blackwood. I fed them inside information, making them doubt his leadership. And finally, I reached out to the media. Within a week, headlines exploded. Right Arrow Victor Langley accused of financial fraud. SEC launches investigation. Right Arrow luxury real estate development in Miami under scrutiny. Blackwood Holdings CEO in crisis. Right Arrow Victor Langley's empire on the brink. Victor had no idea where the fire was coming from. He was scrambling, trying to keep Blackwood from collapsing. And that's when I made my move. Victor's office in Miami was a glass-walled fortress, sitting on the top floor of a high-rise overlooking the ocean. I walked in unannounced. His secretary gasped, reaching for phone, but I kept walking. Victor was standing by the window, phone to his ear, barking orders. When he turned and saw me, his face darkened. "You have some nerve walking in here," he growled, slamming the phone down. I smirked. "Relax. I just came to see how you're holding up." His eyes burned with rage. "What the hell did you do?" I sat in the chair across from his desk, legs crossed. "Oh, just a few phone calls. A little truth here, a little exposure there. Turns out, people don't like investing in a criminal." His fist clenched. "You think you won?" I leaned forward. "I know I have." Victor scoffed, shaking his head. "You're playing with fire. This isn't just business. Elijah, you're making enemies you can't handle." I tilted my head. "Oh, you mean the same investors who just pulled out of Blackwood? Yeah, they're not too happy with you right now." He grabbed a folder off his desk and threw it at me. "Look at it," he snapped. I picked it up, flipping to the papers. Then my heart stopped. I looked up. "This is..." Victor smirked. "That's right. You're in deeper than you think." The folder contained legal documents, contracts, signatures, even bank transfers. My name was on them. I frowned. "What the hell is this?" Victor leaned back, smug. "While you were busy trying to ruin me, I made sure to leave a little evidence behind. Paper trails that make it look like you were the one laundering money through Langley. If I go down, so do you. My stomach tightened. Evelyn had warned me about this. Victor always had a backup plan. I clenched my jaw. This won't hold up in court. Victor smirked. Maybe not, but it'll be enough to destroy your reputation. The media loves a scandal. For the first time since this battle started, I felt a flicker of doubt. Had I underestimated him? Was I about to lose everything again? Victor leaned in, voice low. You wanted a war, Elijah. Well, now you've got one. Victor leaned back in his chair, smirking. He thought he had one. You wanted a war, Elijah? Well, now you got one. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. He had played his trump card, fabricated evidence tying me to money laundering. If this got out, everything I built would crumble. My name, my business, my future. But Victor had made one fatal mistake. He underestimated me. I closed a folder and placed it neatly on his desk. You think this scares me? Victor's smirk widened. It should. I leaned forward, my voice calm. Too calm. You know what your problem is, Victor? You never learn when to quit. His smirk faltered. What the hell does that mean? I smiled. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out a USB drive. His eyes flickered to it. What's that? I tossed it onto his desk. Proof that you were the one laundering money. Every transaction, every offshore account, every fake invoice. All of it. Victor's jaw tightened. You're bluffing. I chuckled. Am I? I pulled out my phone and pressed a button. The TV screen in his office lit up. Video footage played. His accountant, his lawyer, his closest allies, asterisk, all caught on hidden camera, discussing his fraud in detail. Victor's face went pale. You set me up? His voice wavered. I stood up. No, Victor. I outplayed you. His fist clenched. You little. Before he could finish, his office doors burst open. FBI agents flooded in. Victor Langley, an agent announced, flashing a badge. You're under arrest for financial fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. Victor's face contorted in rage as the agents closed in. You think this is over? He spat as they dragged him away. I'll ruin you. I swear. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You're already ruined. And just like that, Victor Langley was finished. With Victor out of the picture, the real game began. Langley Industries had been a sinking ship under Victor's leadership, but I rebuilt it from the ground up. I restored the factory jobs he had cut. I invested in the employees he had exploited. I turned Langley into an empire, but I didn't stop there. I used my knowledge of the real estate industry to make power moves. I acquired Victor's Miami development at a fraction of its value after his assets were frozen. I turned it into a billion-dollar property. I expanded into technology, finance, and renewable energy. Within a year, my net worth exploded. I was no longer just a businessman. I was a kingmaker. 1 year later, a grand ballroom, hundreds of powerful figures, investors, politicians, CEOs, gathered in one place, and I was the guest of honor. I walked onto the stage, adjusting my cufflinks. The room fell silent. I glanced at the crowd, the same people who once laughed at me, the ones who dismissed me as just a broke factory worker. I cleared my throat. A year ago, I was a man with nothing, no power, no wealth, no connections. I paused, scanning the room, but I had something more valuable: knowledge, strategy, resilience. Some nodded, intrigued. Others leaned forward. I wasn't born rich. I wasn't handed success. I took it. I built it with my mind, my discipline, and my ability to outthink those who stood in my way. I saw a few nervous glances. They knew who I was talking about. I smiled. Let this be a lesson. It's not about where you start. It's about how smart you play the game. A few seconds of silence. Then, thunderous applause. As I left the stage, a reporter approached me. Mr. Carter, what's your advice for those struggling to make it? I looked straight into the camera. Learn the system. Master it. Then beat them at their own game. The interview went viral. Millions watched. Millions were inspired. But for me, this was just the beginning. The end, or just the beginning. If you were hooked by this story, drop a comment below. What would you have done in Elijah's shoes? Share your thoughts, like, and subscribe for more epic success stories. Keep Langley forever.